Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy, a podcast that looks at the inspiration, intention, action, and choices that you can make to bring more joy into your life, into the world, and into other people's lives. This is your host, Paula Jenkins. Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy. This week on the show, I'm really excited to be doing a brand new solo cast all about how it takes courage and heart to play small. This is a really fun episode because I'm building on some of the conversation that I started back in episode 246 when I first started talking about playing small. And I'm also going to review a couple of other favorite episodes from the past. Before we get to that conversation, I first want to give you a very warm welcome and say thank you so much for tuning in to Jumpstart Your Joy this week and always, because it's so much fun to be able to hang out with you for a little bit of your day. Thank you for making the time. I hope that you're doing well and that you're all staying healthy. If you want to find out more about the show, you can find the website at jumpstartyourjoy.com, and you can find show notes both in your podcast app. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can just tap through and look for the show notes and the links that are associated with this episode. Or you can go to the website, jumpstartyourjoy.com/episode 251, and you'll find them there. The fun thing about that is that I often list some of the books and past episodes that I'm talking about in the show notes. And while you're on the website, you can sign up for my newsletter where I do talk about the inspiration, intention, and action and 3 things that are bringing me joy this week. It gives you a little nudge if you need it to check out the show and listen to that latest episode. So those are a couple of ways to stay in touch. So let's jump right on in here. I really loved the conversation that got started around playing small. So in episode 246, I reflected about why I am feeling it's time to let go of playing big. Of course, there's a very prominent book with that name and the idea that we step out and make noise and get noticed. And there's a lot of things that feel like effort and hustle and I don't know, some of the hard parts about being an entrepreneur that I feel like if we just drop that playing big pressure, we can actually do what I am starting to call play small, which means lean into your natural gifts, do things that feel right and feel like in a normal rhythm for you and your days, and knowing that you continue to take baby steps towards your dream and building something that is sustainable. That's what is at the heart of playing small. One of the things that I know is so important, and this was really interesting because it came up in the conversation that I had with Susie Soloviv, and this was in episode 232, which was released back in February. And I loved when I asked Susie, her company name is Your Sacred Record, and I asked her, how did you reach this name, and what does a sacred record mean to her? So one of the things that she shared is, of course, the word sacred means special and revered and of God. But when she got into the word record is where I really lit up. She says the following. First of all, sacred. The dictionary definition that I use is connected with God, or the gods are dedicated to religious purpose entitled to reverence and respect. And then record means to sit down and write or to give evidence, or from the Latin word cor, meaning heart, and then, of course, a record. And I just lit up when she mentioned the word cor, because I recall when I worked with one of my mentors, who is Father Rusty. He's a Franciscan priest, and he works at San Damiano in Danville, California. And one of my favorite talks that he will give up there is all about the word courage, or coraggio. And at the root of that word is also core. So core of the heart means courage comes of the heart, as do records come from the heart. And it just reminded me that all of this work takes so much courage and heart to do it. Whether you're writing down your very own sacred record, or you're talking about courage in and of itself, it all takes heart. The second thing that this playing small also takes, and that I see, is that playing small and embracing joy takes a great deal of vulnerability. There's something very true about looking at playing small and embracing the small things that bring you joy, because in the little moments that you can tap in and realize, hey, this thing is super joyful, or I'm going to tell other people that I have joy. Sometimes that can be really vulnerable, because I think as people in this society, we often are afraid of what I call kind of the extreme ends of emotions. So both joy and grief are at the extreme end of emotions. And many times as a society, we are afraid to express either one of them out loud, because it's safer just to play to the middle. Now, of course, playing big might mean that you're loud and out there and talking about all the things that bring you joy. But I also think there is a lot of beauty in playing small with it, because you can notice for yourself the little bitty things that bring you joy and that you feel a connection with. So I've talked recently on the show many times about the enormous artichoke plant that is outside my window. Now, that's kind of a small joy, and it's a silly thing that I like to look at as I record some of these interviews and solo casts. So maybe that's an example of a small joy that you can find in your everyday. You don't have to share it with anybody, but it's not one of those big, over-the-top things that we're shouting from the rooftops about. It's one of those things that really kind of connects with something in my heart and takes courage for me to notice for myself, because I think society will often tell us that those little things that stand out for us maybe aren't as important as the big ones that we see all over Instagram, or that are part of a Disneyland photo shoot, or are they really major markers that we see in life, weddings and proms and, those kinds of things stand out as joyful events. But I think in playing small, it's also really important to notice the little things and the little moments that bring us joy, because oftentimes those are as enjoyable as the bigger things that don't have as much pressure that come with them, and that are just a tiny thing that we can enjoy for ourselves. I'm also realizing in this moment, as I start to talk about it, it's also more of an introverted joy. It's something that's just for us. And especially if right now you're feeling in that space of things are too much, and maybe if you're a highly sensitive person, you're feeling like there's a lot going on with all the stress of the world at the moment. Maybe it is really important now, more than ever, even to notice those tiny little joys that feel like maybe they're just for you, and you can just share them with yourself. And lastly, I think the thing that stands out for me around playing small and having heart and courage is this idea that sometimes it takes a lot of courage to get in touch with the things that are really important to you and cling to them and make them the most important thing. Because I know so often, both in the entrepreneurial space and as a human on the planet, it's really easy to start to see other people announcing the things that they think are important. Or if you get kind of into the playing big, you only live once type mindset, there's all of these really big ideas that we could think are the most important things, when oftentimes I find that what our heart and our mind and our soul is really longing for is a small connection that isn't really the kind of thing that you often put on a bucket list, or that you wouldn't really hashtag YOLO or you only live once about. It's more about the times and the little things that we really long for. And in an example, that might be that I just wish for sometimes to have 5 minutes of silence in my day. I don't know if anybody's putting that on the bucket list. Or maybe I just wish that I could go to the beach again and notice the water and how the light plays on the water and how my toes look like it's part of the Moana movie. Like, that's a tiny little moment that not a lot of people are screaming about, but that's really important to me. And so I might prioritize the steps to getting to that place or that feeling over the things that might be big and flashy and on a bucket list and being screamed about on Instagram. And so I think it's really important, as we balance out this ideal of playing big and being out there and putting the pressure on ourselves, is to notice how it also can play into some of our own things that we're working towards, or things that we're embracing, or things that we're putting first, either in our personal lives or in our business lives. Because when we tap into and allow the small things that take courage and heart to flourish in our lives, oftentimes that is where the greatest joy is, because we're quietly crafting a life that is our very own. And it may not be the picture that we would see in somebody else's book, but it is a picture of what is reflected in our own heart and in our own desires. And I think that right now, more than ever, is the most important part of how we can find the inspiration for joy and really set the intention for that joy, and then take the actionable steps to bring those small things to life to really bring more joy into our world. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode, all about it taking heart and courage to play small and the impact that it can make on your life. And I hope that you'll come back next week. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you want to find out more about this episode, including links to the things that we've talked about, you can find the show notes at jumpstartyourjoy.com. And you can search for this episode right up there in the right-hand corner of the website. You'll find it. While you're on the website, I know you're going to want to sign up for my weekly newsletter, which is 3 Joyful Things. It's where I take a look and give you guys the behind the scenes of what I'm really thinking about with each episode, including the inspiration, intention, and action, along with the choices that you can make in your own life to bring some of the things that each guest or I share into your everyday life. So it's a lot of fun. You can find the sign up for that off the homepage or within the show notes of every episode. And I would love to connect with you. I hang out a ton on Instagram, where my handle is Jumpstart Your Joy. You can also find the Facebook page for this podcast at Jumpstart Your Joy. So I hope you guys will come on back next week. And until then, I hope that your days are filled with so much joy.